what to focus on moving into the future. And I kind of couldn't think of a better way than what you suggested. We both watched a movie, and we might be sorry that we watched it, but we watched it, so now we might as well talk about it. What movie was it? Tell us a little bit about your experience, because I think a lot of the people out there might have seen it as well.
Well, it was funny. I was in West Virginia for the Arlington Institute talk, and I hung there a couple of days. And while I was there, I saw this trailer for a film called Leave the World Behind, with big players in it like Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke, and people that you think, okay, well, this must be something to take serious, right? If obviously those are high paid actors, they wouldn't be in just a regular flick. So I tuned into it and I was watching it, and immediately became apparent that this thing was like, well, I guess there's a word for it. It's called predictive programming. And we've been talking about that on some of our shows. This is the way you can kind of test the waters if you are like in the cabal or part of the elite, and you've got plans, big plans take big planning. And part of that, I think, is, and this is that's something which has become clear to me about these kinds of films, is that they're simulations in themselves. They're like live simulations, you could say, to see, to take a temperature of where people are still at. If they're waking up, are they completely gone? Is there some resistance? Or they might even be checking out ideas, like in this film in particular, what is the big concept in this film? And I guess we should, tell people that are watching this, spoiler alerts, we're going to be digging into stuff.
Yeah, totally. We can't really discuss it. We can't really discuss it. The first spoiler alert, Frank, it was executive producers were Barack and Big Mike, right? They're executive producers of the movie.
Yeah, here, let me show you. I got a screenshot. This is, you're watching the intro flicks, right? And I couldn't believe my eyes, right? It was like executive producer, right? And you probe and dig a little deeper, and you find out that not just executive producer, but actually giving the director, in this case, Sam Esmail, pointers and script revisions to match reality. And I looked up Sam Esmail because the name is an interesting name, and he's obviously a very well-known director. And if you look at the etymology of his name, it comes up as essentially a child so named was regarded as the fulfillment of a divine promise. So it already in the credits is it's getting into this idea of prophecy, or of like where things are moving. So they don't hold back. It's like, I would call it a no hold bars approach to, let's throw all our symbology at them, right? And let's just see, what, and even to the point where the symbology is dynamically changing as the film is evolving. That's not something you're going to necessarily see. We can get into that a little bit, but that was clear. Yeah.
I just want to give a quick overview of, kind of how the movie, what it depicts is basically, like so many movies, a scenario of an attack, in this case on the United States, that doesn't apparently express itself as an attack in the beginning. It just turns out it is that. The cinematography is interesting at best and horrible probably at worst to describe it, but really it also doesn't end on a very satisfying note. But the journey of the movie is very interesting in the symbology, in the hidden meanings, in the open meanings, what it portrays. So, Frank, I'm kind of going to let you just take it away. Leave the World Behind. What was your impression? What did you think while watching the movie?
Well, I mean, the first thing, like I already mentioned, is the use of satanic symbology, or let's just say, those of us who have been having an eye on the music industry videos, where they sometimes get much more adventurous with their provocation with respect to Luciferian or satanic imagery. They went right in that direction with this film right off the bat. Like, one of the things that I made a screenshot here is, for example, just the credits of the person who wrote the novel is, the all-seeing eye. Mm-hmm. And it's the colors, these satanic colors, black, red, and white. I mean, the colors in themselves are not a problem, but it's a code, right? And then you see the number 666 there, right? I just about fell off my my chair, right? Because if you look at, right there, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but you can see 6 on the cup. The clock has the pointer pointing at 6, and on the far end of his bed, there's another number 6.
Okay,
so
you went deep. I didn't catch that.
Oh no, I mean it's like this is not accidental at all, John. This is stuff that when you see this kind of placement, it's it's along the lines of what we see in things like this, right? We have, if you look at media, right, what do you see there? You see the same kind of symbology. Like here, for example, this is something that somebody pointed out to me a year ago or something and started collecting. If you look at the covers of Time magazine, right, it's like, again, if you see the cover on its own, you probably wouldn't notice it, but you see them all put together, and it's very clear that there's, I think that they're saying to us here, we're in charge. This is another one of our message medias. And most people will not notice those things. Like there's another symbology. Like here's one that you probably definitely didn't check this one out. I didn't either. Somebody else pointed this out, and I went back to the film and looked at it. Right in the beginning of the film, you see Julia Roberts' character standing in the top left there in front of this painting, and this obviously very rich house that this Airbnb. As the film progresses to the right of that, if you look at a scene later on, you can start seeing the painting becoming less and less refined. Whereas the first version, there was 4 pillars, almost representing the husband, wife, and the 2 children, black and white, right? And then all of a sudden, black and white turns to more smudgy, less defined, and also the character development is turning less defined. And at the very end, which I have at the bottom here, near the end of the film, it's completely changed. Now you've got no definition. It's a mishmash, and it's the symbol, really the symbology of essentially saying to us, this idea of the family unit, this idea, even the idea of, the subtle racist tones or, imagery that is like saying, there's black and there's white. Well, eventually, and especially in the film, there's the protagonists who is essentially this, I guess, I don't know, hard to call them protagonists, but let's just say the main characters, the white family of 4, and then the supporting characters, which is this black man and his daughter he works for the cabal. It's funny, and he's in the role of the millionaire who owns the rich suburban house outside of New York, and the white family's going on a vacation in his house. So you're starting to mix up right away this idea of, yeah, exactly. So that's one of the first things you kind of get on the road with the film right off the bat. You see this kind of imagery, and I think, like you pointed out in our pre-talk, there are some characters, and especially the one character is this the daughter of the couple, of the white couple. Her name is Rose, and she's got the weirdest look, and it's what I mean.
It's a scary looking kid. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, she was a scary looking kid.
Weird looking kid, right? And represents that generation, the last generation, or Z or whatever, and who are normally just caught up in video games and in their own little reality. And funny enough, she's the character that is the one who's the most observant to events that are happening in the film. And I think the first most profound one that we notice is when they go to the beach, right? Sitting on the beach, and she looks out and she sees this boat coming. First it's far off, right? And it's getting closer and closer. And she suddenly goes like, why this boat's moving toward us, right? And then of course the mother looks up, and then the last one to see it, of course, is the man, the husband. He's the most clued out. We can get into that a little bit, talking about that particular characterization. But I looked at this boat right off the bat, and I thought, they made the name very obvious. Again, you've got the colors, red, white, and black, that I was talking about in the credits, right? And the name is White Line. And I'm thinking that's got to have some meaning. And then, later, as I was digging around and putting together some more research about it, you find out, and there's another number which appears in the film, and that is on the screen. It's called 1619. And so what you find is that 1619 was the date that I guess one of the first slave ships with Hebrews on board was brought to America and landed in, actually the name of the town is the same name. What is it again? It's remember what the name of the town was? Port Hope or something like that?
Yeah, or Comfort or something like that.
Comfort,
but
yeah, like something, yeah. Port Comfort, right? And it's funny that's like, there's no coincidence that in the year 1619, the boat called White Lion brought the first slaves to America in Port Comfort, right? It's like, there's no way that's a coincidence. Like,
no,
right?
no, it's not.
So,
it's
and
not.
the whole, there you introducing the idea, what is that? Slaves, right? Slaves brought to America, to the New World. And you would think, okay, what does that have to do with the film, really? Well, you find out that, again, going back to this analogy of slavery, you've got the black man and his daughter coming back to the house because they obviously are experiencing what's going on with the world out there, which is going crazy. They come back and they end up sleeping in the basement, because they're like, okay, they convinced the family. And what does the basement look like? It looks like one of those ships, those old slave ships where they, below the gully, they used to stash the slaves, and he's got to sleep on the floor, and they've got symbology in that room, like a map on the wall. And I put a little picture of it here. If you look at that map, right, what is it? It's a map of America divided up into 4, and it's put up on that wall. So you're thinking, okay, is that another coded message that when this breakdown of society in America takes place, we've heard about that. We've heard about this dividing things up into zones, into areas, right? So
yeah, the Hunger Games shows this perfectly, right? How it's supposed to, but really just for those who haven't seen the movie, don't know the story. So basically at this point where we are is what the protagonists know is that there is no internet and no TV stations or radio stations are working. So basically comms are off, phones are not working, comms are off, power is still there. They still have power, but no comms whatsoever. And at this point, they know it's a blackout of some sort, but nobody knows yet whether it's an attack, an accident, whatever. But then it gets pretty dark pretty soon. It gets pretty clear what's going on pretty soon, right?
Right, exactly. And the way we jumped into it here right now is about as confusing, I guess, as you are when you're in the film, because you don't know, like you don't really know, like you describe what's happening in the film yet. You just know there's, again, the young girl figures out the TV's not working right. And then eventually you get some pictures, you get like this up on the screen, and that's where it's kind of made clear what we're talking about here. We're talking about a cyber attack across the entire country. And again, they're showing us the map, and the question comes, is this a map that could depict reality if this is indeed a simulation and they're trying to program us toward anticipating something like this? Well, on the map, you see the high and substantial areas of disruption, of course, corresponding to the areas in America where the technology is at the highest, the highest dependency, if you want to put it that way, right?
And then so, populated, yeah.
Right. And of course, we know that the WEF has been talking for the last 2 or 3 years. Like, I got a slide of that. You have to see that, right? The WEF announces.
You deserve the truth, but big tech does not want you to hear it. So we built our own Inspired platform on the inspiredchannel.com. To watch the full video and more, just click the link in the video description or the pinned comment.